Because like, yeah, I totally agree that especially with young people, there's a lot of competition. Like, someone will be an artist, and there's another person who wants to learn art, drawing, and whatnot, and then this other person will be like, "Oh, who do you think you are, trying to draw better than me?" But it's like, yo, what are you like? Why? Why are you guys arguing about
That actually happened?
No. That happened. That hasn't happened. But that's an example of how.
An example.
Yeah. That's how trivial these can be.
Yeah, I think Ryan brings up a good point that I think sometimes this is because of our upbringing and yeah, the fact that we have to be the best, and when they're pushing us to be doctors, lawyers, blah blah blah, right? I could see that. Yeah, I could see that being tying into that. So maybe, but I don't know. Again, I think with our generation, we're not super young, but we're also not too old, so we can balance our thoughts.
We're a mixture of Gen X and millennials here.
Yeah,
so
we can balance our thoughts a little bit and be a little bit more.
I'm curious then with that question. Did your parents push you guys to be a certain thing? I know my mom wanted me to be a nurse. I chose not that.
Well, yeah, they definitely. My mom wanted me to be a nurse, but I mean, I wanted to be a doctor and all that, so that was my choice. Ended up being a nurse anyway. But
when I was younger, I think there was like a familial push because I was the older one. There was always this expectation of being like the leader or whatever, and I. Like looking back at it, I kind of felt that I think my parents, because my dad's an engineer, that like even my aunts were like, "How come you're not an engineer? How come you're not going to?" There was that push to be engineering, but for me personally, I realized like my parents weren't really pushing that like anything on me. You know what I mean? Like it was more so like for me, just for me. There's always that like the Asian mentality of like you gotta push for, which is a good thing, I personally think. But I've learned and I've realized that my parents weren't really putting any pressure on me as I was getting older.
I don't know if anybody else got this, but I definitely got compared a lot to other people and their achievements.
Oh, all the time.
Especially if they were slightly older or the same age, I'd be like, "Hey, they've done this." Not necessarily, not always saying like, "Hey, why aren't you doing this?" But I don't know.
Mine's the opposite, because Gerald.
Sometimes I feel that sometimes with.
Hold up, listen. Like Gerald was always the best example. Like my parents would be like, "Oh, how come you're not like doing like Gerald?"
Oh, right.
I'd be
horrible.
Like,
I was always compared to other people, and I was just like, I don't know. I don't know.
Did you realize that was happening to him too?
No. No, when I was younger, no, obviously not, because I was like, why are you always comparing me to Gerald? But yeah. Sorry, Jay, what you were saying?
Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Oh,
Jay.
Sometimes it's my synchronicity with I'm hearing different things at the same time now. But it caught up. So sometimes I feel, and I've heard this before, that especially amongst Filipino people, they generally just want us to do good things, do what's good in the world. But with other Asians, they get a directive, like a prime directive. You are going to go and be a doctor, or you will be disowned, or you will be successful financially, or you're just not good enough. And I know other Asians,
at least that's
like
what
our
we
friends,
hear.
they got a lot more pressure than we did.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Amongst the Asian groups, definitely Filipinos, I think that they direct us, but they don't like disown us. Like Kali, I remember my friend, he's Korean and he ended up going to a UC school. He tried out different UC schools, but the pinnacle for his dad was UC Berkeley. But he got into UC Santa Cruz. And his dad was disappointed. He got into UC Santa Cruz. I'm like, dude, he got into a UC school. What the hell, man? You know? So their standards are just so hardcore. And his dad was even happy about him going there. Like, you think about if some Filipino kid went to a UC school, you're like, holy shit, that's right. You know, right on, right? Yeah. So it's kind of weird, man. The expectations and maybe the standards amongst Asians are a little bit different. You know, maybe even different amongst Igorots and lowlanders. I've seen different examples, so I don't know. You know,
I don't know.
But going back to like, that's fine.
I'm gonna expect a lot.
I have to admit, I'm like a tiger dad to my kids sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. We'll see. I could say between my brother and I think my brother and they didn't do to me as much because comparisons. Like, they used to compare my brother all the time to some other folks. Like, hey, look at this guy. He did this and he did that, you know? And they'd always try to say that to Jay. And I remember you'd get so pissed off about that kind of stuff, man. And
annoying.
I think because of what they experienced with my older brother, they didn't do it to me as much. You know, although they would occasionally talk about certain people. Hey, he did this and he did that. And I think as a young person, of course, that used to be annoying. But like, I agree with Jay in saying, like, I think that's the way they try to motivate us. They have a different style of motivation. It's almost like, I don't know if it's Igorot or just Filipino in general, but it's like reverse psychology motivation. It's like they want to say the opposite so that, like, they think, and maybe for first generation folks and folks in the Philippines, they get motivated by this kind of stuff. They're like, hey, no, I can be better than that. I don't know. I don't know. But that's how the first generations, I think, and if you're a second generation kid and you didn't understand where they were coming from, the instant thing would be just to be pissed off. Be like, yeah, why are you comparing me? Yeah. I'm not like them. I'm not, so it's kind of funny.